Tracking an Arctic shot of air likely to bring the first snow of the year for many, even to portions of the south. Welcome in, folks. Happy Thursday, November 6th. And yeah, still tracking the shot of Arctic air. And I really think this one might catch some folks off guard. We've got a really nice couple of days ahead for a lot of us, but by this weekend and especially early next week, very cold air. And yeah, even snow for some folks, borderline a snowstorm on the way during the same time frame. So we're breaking it all down for you in today's video. I'm going to show you the latest model guidance, give you my analysis of that guidance and what exactly it means for your forecast. If you're new to the channel, though, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. That helps to keep you in the loop. You'll be the first to find out whenever I have new model data, and I always post it right here on the channel to keep you folks up to date and weather-wise. All right, let's go and dive right on into it and start talking weather. Looping next to me today, we've got the European model, the latest run I've got over the next about 5 to 7 days or so, showing that very active pattern. You can see all of those blue lines dipping down south. Those are pockets of colder air, and then you can see areas of low pressure riding through it, bringing snow, and then right there at the end, yeah, snow even down potentially into the mountains of North Carolina, Tennessee, maybe as far south as northern Alabama, and we could even see some flurries or light snow showers break containment and get east. We'll be talking about exactly how much snow that is here later on in the video. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a look at what we've got going on out there right now. And I think you can definitely see that things are in a bit of a lull for the next day or so. We've got this clipper system that worked on through the Northeast yesterday. If you got snow out of it, let me know. I'm sure a lot of folks up, especially into the higher terrains of New England, did see some snow from that one. But that pulling away and cold air funneling in behind it now. Then the other thing that probably catches your attention is all this activity back into the plains. This will eventually become the mechanism that drags our cold air south. Now, I know you can't really see cold air on this map, but trust me, it's up here. It's bottled up towards the Hudson Bay right now, and all of this energy eventually is going to scoot to the south of it and drag it down south behind it, and that's going to help to eventually set up shop for potential snow by the time we get to around Sunday and Monday of next week, and then it'll linger even into the middle of next week in the form of some pretty big lake effect snow for many of us. In terms of radar out there right now, you can see we actually do have some snow falling right now. If we zoom on into the Northeast, we've got some lake effect or lake enhanced snow, maybe we'll call it, going on into the Adirondacks of New York right now. So if you're up that way, likely seeing some snow showers today. We've got some rain and snow showers depending on elevation back down towards Syracuse, Utica, Binghamton, and kind of working towards the Hudson Valley of New York here, coming off of the Finger Lakes and off of some of the Great Lakes out here as well, seeing some of that action. And then we've also got some action from that Clipper system that is now really into a full-fledged low pressure working up through Nova Scotia and eventually into Newfoundland later on today. Other than that, it's really just some light rain for some of us back out into the plains. We've got some rain into the PNW and maybe a little bit of light snow up into International Falls to start today. But generally speaking, for the most part, the map pretty quiet now compared to what it's going to look like by the time we get about a couple of days or so from now, to put it that way. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what's going to drive this big pattern change, and then let's just dive right on into the model data and give you the latest. Well, if you've watched the channel for any sort of time, you know the number one thing I say is to forecast the surface, you got to forecast the upper levels, or what's happening in the upper levels is going to really influence what happens down at the surface. And with this pattern, it's no different. It's all going to come down to this really big trough we have that's going to work in the United States. And just to familiarize yourself here with the colors on the map, the purple, the pink, the kind of snow miser colors, if you will, on the map, that is a troughing or pockets of colder than average air. Meanwhile, the more heat miser colors, or the oranges and the reds, that's where we have warmer pockets of air or ridging in the atmosphere. Now, we've got a pocket of cold in the Northeast today. That was brought by that Clipper system, and kind of that pocket brought the Clipper system as well. It all kind of works in tandem here, but either way, you get the point. It's cold there, and if you're in the Northeast, you'll agree with me today, I'm pretty sure. Here we go, though. This is when things get more interesting. This is tomorrow evening, so Friday evening. Here's that big pocket of cold air I told you about. It's there. It's up to the Hudson Valley. We've gotten a little extension of that cold air, though. This is going to fire off a low pressure system, that troughing or that extension, and that's going to help to really pull down this cold air further south. Now, that first storm, not really going to bring much snow, but you see this little piece of energy back into Montana. This is what we call a short wave. That's a little kink in the flow here. That's also going to create surface low pressure, which is going to obviously create some lift and some cloud cover and some precipitation. And luckily for us snow lovers, it's going to come in the form of snow for a lot of us as this kind of rides that cold boundary. With the cold air to the north and low pressure riding the boundary, it's a classic setup for some snowfall. And that's going to happen. That little piece is going to ride through it. And then we're not done yet. The two kind of merge together and look at what happens. An upper level low of just really anonymously cold numbers here for this time of year dives south. And we've got just the core of this thing parking right over into the Smokies, into North Georgia, into the Carolinas. That's why we're even talking about snow potential pretty far south with this system, is because of how far south it's going to dig, or basically just how far it's moving southward, as we call it in meteorology. If you're a fan of the warmer weather, though, and you hate the cold, the good news is I don't see this shot lasting very long for most of us. We'll talk more about that later on, really over the coming days. But just know, I think this is more of a transitional or a transient shot of cold air. Probably not going to set up a long-term pattern, at least yet. That time will come, though, later on. All right, that's the upper level map. Let's get into the models now. Let's take a look at the GFS, the European, and break them down and show you who has the highest chance of snow. All right, we'll start with the GFS model and walk you through it. So you can see some of that snow up in the northeast today into the higher terrains, as I showed you on radar earlier. It's there and it's definitely happening. Here comes that next system, though. This is the one that I said would really was showing up by Friday evening. It gets going as early as this evening. We've got a 995 or so millibar low pressure right over northern Minnesota and Wisconsin. Like I said, mainly rain for this one in the United States, snow up into Canada. That rides through the Great Lakes, and we could see some gustier winds out of this. This is tomorrow morning, working through Detroit, through much of Michigan, even down into Indiana. By tomorrow afternoon, through Ohio, Pennsylvania, into New York State, and by tomorrow evening up into New England, you can see a quick line of showers and storms. I'm not going to go super in depth on it, folks, but also we do have a bit of a severe weather risk out of this down south tomorrow. An isolated tornado, gusty winds, all the typical stuff we're used to. So keep that in mind, but we're going to try to focus on the snow in today's video, as I'm sure that's what many of you really care about more so than a small severe weather risk. Then by Saturday morning, that kind of crosses through the mid-Atlantic and we start to clear out. Then comes the next piece of energy. This is the one I told you about. Here it is, low pressure developing over portions of Nebraska. We've even got some snow up into North Dakota and into South Dakota, and you keep on moving this ahead into time. And that's a feisty little low pressure. Check it out. We've got some dark blue showing up over portions of Iowa. This is Saturday afternoon. Yeah, afternoon snow in early November. Yeah, on the way for some of us. Moves off to the east in southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois, right along the belt of Wisconsin there, getting some snow. And then right into here, something that's really uptrended in the models is a pretty good snow event, borderline snowstorm worthy, although quick hitting, I will add, for portions maybe of south central Michigan. Like I said, maybe even southern Wisconsin. And then this storm starts to pull north, as you would expect this time of year. They pull north a little bit quicker. And look at the back end snow there, even into Detroit, and becomes more of a snow event up to Canada. And it looks like mostly rain for the northeast to start. But then as that moves away, the cold air works in, and by Monday morning and afternoon, the lake effect snow takes over off of all the Great Lakes. The first good lake effect event of the year could last for a couple of days, and just hangs on for a while. Then the GFS wants to even get another little clipper type system here later on down the pipeline. This is 10 days from now, so obviously don't take too much out of it, but the GFS keeps the pattern a little bit more active, at least for the Northeast, although warms up everyone else. All right. That's the GFS. What about the European? And I'm going to kind of skip through the parts that are the same. And the first storm system, really the same on both models, not too different there. The second storm system, a little bit warmer on the European. Notice it's got the storm in the same place as the GFS, but is mostly rain. So keep that in mind here. But then it starts to catch on with the GFS, gets snow up into central Michigan. This is by overnight Saturday into early Sunday. A nice little snow event. And then same thing, mainly rain for the Northeast. But where they begin to agree is the lake effect takes over. However, one key difference between the models is right into here. Notice what happens on the European. Snow starts to break out into eastern Kentucky, into the Cumberland Plateau, into the Smokies, northern Alabama, the mountains of North Georgia getting some light snow showers or some flurries out of this system by Monday afternoon. Yeah, that's right. This isn't morning snow. This is afternoon snow in November for some folks down here at a pretty far south, if you ask me. And even tries to break containment and get a couple snow showers into the Piedmont of North Carolina and Virginia by overnight Monday into Tuesday, or at least some flurries, and then keeps the lake effect action going all the way into around Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. So a pretty big difference there in terms of how far south the snow gets. Well, what's causing the difference? Let's go ahead and take a look. Well, the real difference in the models for what's happening on the surface, you guessed it, comes back to the upper levels, and specifically the mid-level vorticity map. Vorticity, I know you think of it and you immediately just think of spin, and it is that, but a lot goes into that spin in terms of lift in the atmosphere. We have this thing called QG omega and QG height. It's a lot of dynamical meteorology numbers, but basically this is one of the keys we look at to find where's there going to be lift in the atmosphere to potentially have more active weather. So let's talk about it. We'll kind of move through and get to the exciting stuff. There's that first little system. You can see that shot of some vorticity and troughing. That's the one that brings mainly rain. Here comes the next piece, dives south. That's what could bring that snow, like I said, to areas of Michigan, maybe the Midwest and the Northern Plains see some snow out of it. But here on the European model, notice what happens. The core of that trough, these brightest red colors, that's a bit of a tongue twister there, move south, and we've got all of this spin, or this red, moving into an area down here of the Mid-South, and that creates a lot of lift. Wherever that red goes, you really start to set up shop for rising motion in the atmosphere, generally speaking, as long as there's more of it in the upper levels and less of it in the lower levels. And in this case, that's what we have. So the European is showing, snow further south due to that very digging nature of this trough. Like I said, it gets the core of it right into the Western Carolinas and brings very cold air and that chance of snow, especially to the higher terrains. Obviously, no matter what, lower chances into the Piedmont, just because we know the mountains like to take our snow this time of year. But, it's a good start nonetheless, and we could still see flurries. You'll see that on another map here in a moment. The GFS, a little bit different though, and you'll notice as I move it ahead, again, I'll get to the exciting stuff basically right here. This is the big difference between the two. The trough, or the core of it, only digs down to really Ohio, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. And that's why if you paid attention, I probably didn't mention it, but if you paid attention on the GFS operational model, you saw how there was that bigger band of snow, and it kind of looked like lake effect, but it was really northwest flow snow into the mountains of West Virginia and Pennsylvania. The European, though, had it further south into North Carolina, Tennessee, and even portions of extreme northern Alabama and Georgia as well. So that was the big difference in the models. That's why we have the big difference between the two. And if we take a look at, when is this going to get resolved, Gerald? When are we going to figure it out? Well, if we find out where that piece of energy is now, and I know I'm going to kind of do this on the fly a little bit, let's back it up. Here's the trough, and here's kind of the other piece of energy. The real piece that kind of drags it south doesn't really get over the United States until at night, so we'll start sampling that. And the other piece still well up into the Hudson Bay and towards the Arctic. So it might take a little bit of time to figure this one out, but I will say I'm leaning a little bit more towards the European, just because it's been a lot more reliable this year, and some of our other models are also agreeing with it a tad bit more. All right, that's all the nerdy stuff. Let's get to the stuff you probably care more about. What are the odds you see snow? And we'll give a rough idea of potentially how much. All right, this map's pretty easy to understand. It's just the chance you see at least an inch of snow over a 24-hour period. So where you see things getting shaded in, that's where you have the higher chance. The bar at the bottom correlates. So you can see the 10 being only about a gray percent, the 10% only being a gray greenish color, and then the 70% chance starting to get into more of those reddish and purplish colors. All right, here we go. Here comes the system that's really going to start it all, at least the snow chances. By overnight Saturday into Sunday, pretty good chance we see a quick burst of snow over North Dakota, down into portions of eastern South Dakota, and then northern Iowa. About a 50-60% chance you see an inch of snow out of this is what a lot of the models are showing. Then chances really bump up, though, by early Sunday into the heart of Michigan, south central Michigan. Yeah, 80 to 90% chance of an inch of snow on the European ensembles. Lower numbers back towards Wisconsin and northern Illinois. Like I said, the models really beef up the cold air once it gets to Michigan. That's why you have a higher chance than some of your friends upstream. Then turns into a bigger snow event into the St. Lawrence River Valley, but here comes the lake effect, and here comes that shot of vorticity. I mean, the European, pretty aggressive, 20 to 40% chance we see an inch of snow into eastern Kentucky. It's a pretty big deal for, a Veterans Day. And down into southern Ohio, about a 30-40% chance. Up towards the snow belt of Ohio, lake effect going to kick off. You've got about an 80% chance of seeing an inch of snow. The mountains of West Virginia, the same place. The mountains of North Carolina, yeah, pretty likely to see snow fly at the very least out of this. And you keep it going, and look at some of the flurries trying to break containment. About 10% of the ensemble members on the European showing some snow flying in Virginia, Baltimore, maybe places like the Delmarva. Now, obviously, 10% is not very high, but it's more than zero, and it's November, so we take it a little bit more like, oh, okay, well, that's interesting. I guess is probably the way you'd look at it. And yeah, Cumberland Plateau as well. Check it out. 20 to 30% chance of seeing accumulating snow. Some of that even trying to creep down into the highest elevations of northern Alabama and Georgia. And then you can see the lake effect continues and the system starts to pull away by the middle of this coming week. What about the GFS ensembles? What does it show? What are the differences? Well, starts pretty similar, has higher chances of snow into Iowa. It's been a difference. I showed you on the operational models as well. The GFS was a bit colder, had higher snow potential. So a key difference there to note, but still agrees Michigan. Pretty high chance we're going to get a good couple of inches of snow out of this one. And then the lake effect takes over, and just not as excited about the deep south. Notice Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, much lower chances on the GFS ensemble, so still disagreement there. But still shows some members breaking containment with a couple flurries into the Carolinas outside of the mountains. Again, would not be a big deal, but any festive flurry this time of year that far south is enough to get the town talking, I'm sure. And then lake effect continues through the middle of next week, and then we start to clear on out. All right, those are the percentages. Let's briefly show you, a very rough estimate of how much snow could fall. And I really do mean rough estimate because a good bit's going to change, but let's give you an early sneak peek. All right, before you start just looking at the numbers and telling your mom's, cousin's, brother's, sister, aunt, uncle's pet kangaroo, or whoever that this is how much snow they're going to see, let me explain the map for you. This is the blend of models. So this takes a whole bunch of model data together, picks the models that generally does the best, weighs them a little bit higher, and then gives an output on how much snow is expected to fall. Now, this is not a perfect science, and obviously we have differences between the GFS and the European right now, so this is going to kind of give you a blend of both, but the reality is one of them is probably going to be right. So that's the problem with using a blend, but it's a good, generally speaking, conservative early look at how much snow could fall. So, with that information, now let's talk about what we see. We'll start with the northern plains. Not a whole lot here, maybe an inch or so up into portions of North Dakota, but this is not going to be a big event for you. Probably more of a, hey, reminder, winter's coming, get ready type event. But yeah, some of us could see an inch. We'll watch what happens into northern Iowa and southern Minnesota here. This is where we have pretty big disagreement. The GFS has higher snow chances, the European not so much. You put that together, and that gets about half an inch or so of snow showing up on the models. We start to move this east, and this is where confidence becomes a lot higher. Still kind of differences into Iowa, like I said, into Wisconsin, northern Illinois. So you put the differences together, comes up with about half an inch. But you get into Michigan, that's when things get serious. Now, all of this right into here where I've circled, that's not lake effect. That's just maybe a little bit of lake effect, but it's mostly that system, that storm system I showed you, bringing that heavy belt of snow. And it won't last long, folks, but it could be a hard hitter for a little while. Maybe a quick couple of inches fall down here. I would not be surprised at all, with this sort of setup. And then behind it, lake effect snow becoming increasingly likely. Some of us more than half a foot of snow into the western shore of Michigan, into the upper peninsula, maybe even the typical snow effect, lake effect regions of northern Indiana could start to get in on some action here. Would not surprise me. Southern Indiana, southern Ohio, one of those events that you're going to have to hope the lake effect can break containment, or that piece of energy that the European shows does dig south and just brings a good couple of scattered snow showers. And it's going to be working with pretty cold air too. So it very well could stick if the temperatures are below freezing and you get heavy enough rates. Would not surprise me at all. Moving into the northeast, the snow belt of Ohio, up into Erie, up into Buffalo. You're going to get some lake effect out of this, it would appear right now. Lake effect up into the Adirondacks, into upstate New York. Higher elevation northwest flow into Vermont, New Hampshire, and northern Maine. Unfortunately, if you're a snow lover, into the down east areas of Maine, into Boston, into just coastal New England in general, all the way down to Jersey and Philly, and even into Baltimore, the best chance of snow out of this is going to be something breaks containment, lake effect wise, or if that vorticity swings through, maybe a quick shot of some snow showers. Other than that, this is not going to be a big deal for you. It's still too early to get these big coastal nor'easters that bring I-95 snow. Don't want you to lose hope yet. It's only November, so this is typical that the interior sections would see more snow anyway with a setup like this. Let's move it south now. And this is where I'm sure a lot of you are watching from. Obviously, I'm living in Charlotte. I'm from the Carolinas, lived here my whole life, so I've dragged a lot of viewers from this part of the country. And this is what it looks like. If you're listening to me in Charlotte right now and you're expecting me to go on TV on Saturday and tell you the big November snow is coming, that's not going to happen, unfortunately. Now, could we see some flurries or at best a couple light snow showers break containment of the mountains and make it into the Piedmont from Charlotte, maybe up into the DC area and out east? Yeah, it very well could happen. Some of the models have shown that. That's why you see some of these little specks of a dusting trying to mix in here is with that general thinking. But easily, the highest chance of snow down here going to be into the mountains of West Virginia, down towards the Smokies. And yeah, eastern Kentucky, the Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee, you too could see some snow that maybe tries to accumulate for a little bit. Maybe a dusting, some isolated spots could try to find an inch. Would not shock me. Could even see some flurries down into northern Alabama, northern Georgia as well. But if you're watching in Charlotte, we just have to hope that one very wet snowflake on its way down, dying from the sun, can make it. But this is not going to cancel school for the Piedmont. This is not going to disrupt anything, but it sure will be cold. I can guarantee you that. And speaking of it, yeah, let's go and take a look at exactly how cold it'll be over the next week. Well, for a lot of us, the big story is going to be the cold and not the snow. Let's time it out for you. Now, we're in a bit of a normal-ish stretch right now. We've got some cooler air into the northeast behind that clipper system that worked through. But warming up for a lot of us over the next 24 hours or so. Doesn't last long, though. Check out the weekend. By Saturday afternoon, you can see all of these below average blue temperatures up to the north. There's that pocket of cold air diving south. Still warm into the mid-south, the deep south, and even down into Texas. But the cold going to arrive. Here we go. See all that blue working in. And yeah, sure enough, by Monday afternoon, pictured here, remember, these are temperature anomalies. The European model going with, a typical 30 degrees below what it should be this time of year into the Smokies for high temperatures. Folks, this is going to break some records in terms of daily maximum highs. Maybe some lows could get broken. This is truly Arctic air. It just might not be, single digits because we're getting the Arctic air here to, be in the early half of November. So, 30 degrees below average is not as brutal, but it's going to feel cold. Trust me. Here's the good news. If you're more a fan of fall-like weather, it doesn't last long. It stays here, folks, and you can already see by the time we get to Tuesday and Wednesday, it's trying to get up on out of here. And I'll go to the 0Z model run just so you can see that. You can see it works in, and then by next Thursday, next Friday, it looks to start to warm back up. Now, something the models have been showing is still some shots of cooler air further into the east. That'll be something to watch, but generally speaking, this is going to be a pretty transient shot of cold air. How cold? Well, let's look at day 4 max temperatures. So these are your high temperatures on Sunday. You could easily see that we've got a boundary. It's still warm down in the mid-Atlantic and the deep south. High is 77 in Columbia, South Carolina, 75 down towards south central Georgia, 80s into Florida. But we're struggling to find the freezing mark for a high temperature up into the Dakotas by your Sunday afternoon. By Monday afternoon, you can see the front is cleared through, and we're stuck into the 40s and 50s into the deep south. We are stuck into the 30s in the Ohio Valley, stuck below freezing in the high elevations of Appalachia. And it's cold, folks. There's no sugarcoating it. It's cold. You're waking up Tuesday morning. Yeah, we're down to the 20s for most of us east of the Mississippi. Even some 30s. Finding Florida in November. Yeah, that's not unheard of, but it's not something you see every November, especially for the first half of November. Pretty rare stuff that we're going to see here early next week. And then by Tuesday, we start the gradual warming trend you can see with highs starting to peak back up, especially out into the plains. All right. Well, folks, that's all I've got for you on this Thursday it is, right? I believe. I think that's what I said at the start of the video. I never really know anymore. But definitely it's an active couple of days ahead. We've got exciting times. We've got snow. We've got the cold, which, probably not as exciting as the snow, but we need it for the snow. So, you give and you take here. An active stretch ahead. All right. Y'all have a great one. Stay safe out there. If you made it this far in the video, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know if you're hoping for snow. And anyway, y'all have a great rest of your day. I'll see you all next time.